Hey guys, it's Will, and we're going to be going over the top 5 stocks that we're going to be watching this week. Hopefully, you guys enjoy. So, I hope you're all having a great start to your week. One of the things that we're going to look at is when we're identifying opportunities this week, there's a few markets that are going to stand out to us. The first market here is going to be the space tech market. I got a pass next to me that I recently went to. It's a SpaceX pass that I went to this conference. Got to meet a lot of space companies, and there are two companies in particular that we're going to watch closely in the space industry. So we're going to go over those. When it comes to quantum AI, there's one quantum company we're going to be watching closely this week. So that's the third. And then there's two tech companies in AI that we're going to be watching as a result of some tariff news that should tie nicely into us maybe seeing some opportunities in the market there. Now, when it comes to the top 5, we're going to start with the space tech. This one is going to be based on a company that we recently met and we got to go have some conversations with, even hear about their contracts, and that was Redwire. Redwire has recently sold off big, and it's interesting because it was at $26 a share just a little while ago, and it surged from basically $2 a share up to $27 and then sold down to what is now about $9.25. Redwire recently announced a really big partnership that puts them in hands reach of billions of dollars in funding for their space company. They have contracts with a lot of big companies, including NASA, and one of them was the Air Force Research Laboratory. Got to talk with them at Colorado Springs, the Space Symposium. They were telling me about some of the tech they're developing for satellites. Really good stuff, really profitable right now because they have a lot of contracts. And one of the recent contracts they got is huge that they announced at the event. So again, we start to see them recover. They had a really nice week this past week, a recovery of about 50% in just the 4 days here. And one of the things to consider, you see this green line. This green line oftentimes it kind of acts as a support in a bull market and a resistance in a bear market. And we see that they just started to cross above that 200-day moving average. Maybe they continue up. And I think that the upside, if we see, some of this trend maybe continue getting up into these levels, there could be some room to run. Maybe we see a bounce up to this level. That would be about a 28% increase. And right now it does look a little overextended after pushing up. So we'll have to see if it holds that level. But again, really, really interesting to watch. If you take a look at their stock, again, the financials, they're a small company under $1 billion, but their revenue is kind of good. It's holding between 60 and $100 million per quarter. Their net income going down a little bit, and the financials don't look so hot. But with this recent contract, if you take a look at the news, they secured $83 million capital injection as warrant program concludes. That was 2 weeks ago. And then there's a few other articles that came out on their recent partnerships that's going to put them in reach. Again, they got NASA right there as well. They were awarded a NASA contract. And really interesting, developing drugs, like developing different vaccines or things like that in space. If you think about it, a lot of tech, like for example, the pencil was developed in space. Why? Because they had to adjust to things without gravity. There's a lot of innovations that come when they're trying to make things work in space. And this is a company that's potentially developing medicine up in space. So that's really interesting. So that's why they're number 5. They're not my number 1. They're just one that we got to get a lot of info on. They looked interesting in the near term. So this week, we'll be looking at it. We'll see if any opportunities present themselves like this. Maybe this trend continuing could be potentially what we'd see. So again, that would be a move here from about $6.30 here is where it started the trend. You can see this resistance level here. There it is. So you can kind of see this trend starting to develop, this uptrend. Maybe we see this move happen where it can get and continue this trend. That would be about a 20% increase that we'll be watching closely. Now, that's number 5. Number 4 for space tech. And this one kind of falls within space tech, but it's got to be AMD. That's right. This week, AMD has got my eye. You can see it recovered from down here at $75 a share is where it dropped to. And let me see if I can still salvage this info line. There we go. Yeah, so that recovery right there, if we see it get up to these levels, it would be about a 50% swing, which could be pretty big, right? So 50% potential swing, see it continue up. I'm going to be watching that level with AMD to see how it reacts. They're powering, the reason they're in space tech, so some people say, well, semiconductors, space tech, that doesn't make sense. Well, AMD powers Starlink satellites. So that's right. They create the microchips and the semiconductors. The Versal chips is what they're called, that power Starlink. So that's why they're number 4. We'll be watching them closely. Number 3, this week, we can actually start heading over to quantum. Number 3 has got to be Rigetti. QBTS is on our radar. We got to recently meet the CEO of that company. That's great. Multi-billion-dollar company. It's awesome to meet the CEO. And they are in this trend. So QBTS is one that we're watching. Again, they might make that move. But Rigetti stock, I have Rigetti here for a couple of reasons. Number one is Rigetti has seen this trend start to develop, and it broke above this 200-day moving average. Now, to see this recent move is not small, and a lot of institutional investors were expecting a bounce here at this previous support, and it did validate that support. And so now we're looking at it. There is this level where it's in the past been rejected many times, but there is also this resistance level. You guys see this resistance right here. And that's actually the level at which I'd like to see Rigetti swing. Could it happen quickly? Yeah, it could take some time, absolutely. Maybe it doesn't happen at all, as there is a level right here that it's going to face at $9.20. But they're a quantum computing company. If you take a look at Rigetti stock, you could see how their quantum computers are being used. And some people say they're very far away. Yeah, maybe they don't have as much commercial usage as other quantum companies, but they are getting error correction dialed in. They're getting their 2-qubit gate fidelity dialed in, which means they're becoming more accurate. They still were getting a lot of government funding. So one of the bills that recently passed that's going to IonQ, Rigetti, this bill just passed. I don't know if you guys know, the $2.7 billion quantum initiative, the Reauthorization Act. In the past, the government's always put about $1 to $2 billion towards quantum computing. You can see that happen from 2015, 2018 to 2025 now. And now from 2025 to 2030, there's another $2.7 billion. They increased it slightly. The bill just passed. And if you take a look at the quantum initiative here, you can actually see some recent news on it outside of that article. Let's see if we can find it. Yep. Let's see. That's the quantum edge, right? So that just passed. $2.7 billion in funding is going to IonQ is one of them. You're also going to see Rigetti stand to benefit from this new, basically a stimulus for quantum computing, which I believe is a really good thing, especially when you see us competing against big other countries, right? Which companies are going to have the type of security to be able to handle this new advent of AI, and quantum computers are right at the forefront. So to see the US continue to invest in it, continue to fund quantum computing, it's good. And it also shows that companies like Rigetti, ever since that news was announced, you've seen this recovery of about 40% on the stock. We're actually potentially looking at a swing up here to about $11.95, which would be an 84% swing. And just to put that in perspective from where it's at currently, we'd be looking at about a 30% swing. So these are nice returns. These are the types of moves we want to see if they play out. Rigetti is a quantum computing company solely on US hardware. So they're in Berkeley, and they have a lot of students from UC Berkeley, so a lot of smart employees, but they also aren't being affected by tariffs at all because of the way that they build their quantum computers, as far as the research that I could tell. And then also, when you take a look at Rigetti, they're being used through the cloud as well. So they have partnerships with Amazon AWS. You could see you can use these quantum computers and test them through the cloud, which is tremendous. I think that's a really big milestone, along with Microsoft's Azure as well, that you can use to test out these quantum computers. I would encourage you guys to see the partnerships. They're with NASA. That's a contract that keeps renewing as well. That is pretty good for them. So we'll see how that plays out here in the near term. But again, watching the trades this week, I think that will be one we'll be watching very closely. We're also going to be showing some earnings reports that are coming out later this week in the near term. So make sure to stay tuned and look out for that video. Subscribe if you guys haven't already, as we do have a lot of updates coming in. So that's number 3 in the quantum space. Number 2, we're going to head over to AI and LLM. One of the companies that hasn't really gotten a lot of attention recently, but is in the AI space, is Applied Digital. Now, Applied Digital focuses on building sustainable yet highly effective, and they're very fast at building data centers. So that's really important, because data centers, not only do they power, for example, like Bitcoin mining, let's say, or GPUs, but they also mean that if we're going to see more usage of technology, let's say more software is being developed, especially in 2025, this company is at the forefront. They were partnered with NVIDIA. You could see Applied Digital. And they also are focusing a little bit more on like building these data centers that are next gen. So they have liquid cooling, so they have renewable energy sources. So that's something they do. And they also have very efficient building they're very systematic about it. You can see engineered to bring workloads directly to the point of generation. So they got, you'd see all of the wind turbines, the solar energy, the types of energy sources they use to build these data centers is tremendous. NVIDIA and other investors are backing them with $160 million in funding. They've been growing. You could see the different data centers that they build, and they're pretty fast at it. So if we take a look at APLD here, APLD stock, one thing you'll notice is that their financials are starting to heat up. So their revenue, or their earnings per share, has recently been getting beat. They also had increased revenue year over year by 50%. And if you just take a look at their revenue from quarter to quarter, just quarter 1, 43 million, 43 million, and then 60 million, and then recently 63 million. So yeah, net income's down. They're spending quite a bit, but I just want you guys to look at that. Keep in mind, the reason we have them at number 2 is because they're kind of like supporting the infrastructure to build things like the gigafactories, to build things for NVIDIA or for XAI or any of those data centers. And the other interesting part about the company, you got to look at the institutions. What companies own this company or are buying it? Maybe you don't know. Maybe they have kept it pretty quiet, which they oftentimes do. But take a look at this. BlackRock is a big owner. You got Vanguard. You got State Street. These are the biggest institutions in the world. Morgan Stanley, Charles Schwab. There's a reason that they're buying. You got Bank of America, Goldman Sachs. I'm not just spinning off random names here. You got Citadel. These are Deutsche Bank. So we're talking, Dutch over there. I'm seeing it. And I'm seeing the interest in the company right now, and I'm liking that they recently pulled down big time. And so we saw them sell, we saw them break pattern there, but I will say that as they're at this level, the RSI and the MACD do look a little bit on the oversold side. If we kind of re-arch this trend here, make it a little more conservative, maybe delete this, and you kind of pull it down like this, you can start to see the trend develop. It is getting some momentum. These are the types of swings where we're maybe closer to the support as opposed to the resistance. If we see it bounce at one of these levels, that's 146%, but let's just say a conservative level would be up to here. Those are like 20 to 50% swings. These are the types of trades that I'm looking at here and I would like to potentially capitalize on this week. And they can make a difference. Whether it's just, a lot of times we made trades this past few weeks because the market's been so volatile. We've been investing with $1,000, but we make a 20% swing or 50% swing. We actually made a 50% trade earlier this week on a semiconductor company or semiconductor fund when the market was selling off. And, okay, so it's $300 to $500. Maybe, it helps you cover some extra bills, things like that, or it helps, pay for it paid for most of my trip. The trades that I made paid for all the trips that I was making out to Denver to go see SpaceX and Rocket Lab. So maybe it's a lot, maybe it's a little, but I can tell you that these are the types of swings that don't happen quite often, but because of the unique position we're in the market, they are presenting themselves. And if we go in with a plan, we go in with a stop loss, we go in with a take profit, these are the types of things we've been looking at, especially right at market open. So take a look. Number one is going to be, obviously we have to include it as it's recently massively pulled back, and it is CTM. CTM, I haven't heard of CTM, Will. What are you talking about? Well, CTM is a very little known stock. We've been investing it for a considerable amount of time, and the swings that we've seen on CTM have been literal 100% swings. Literally 100% swings. And you might say, well, that's terrifying. I don't want to touch a stock that's swinging 100%. I totally understand. In fact, I would urge caution because this company is under $100 million market cap. But I will tell you, there's not any hype articles. There's not all these people hyping it up saying, this is the next big thing. It's coming here. It's coming there. You don't see that. In fact, if you search CTM, one thing that they're not telling you maybe is that you still have some institutional interest. That's right. You got Vanguard, it's holding 83,000 shares. State Street is holding a considerable amount of shares. We've seen UBS, Bank of America, and most of you guys haven't heard of this stock, but they are getting some big contracts. One thing I want you to consider when you have a smaller company under 100 million, so $80 million market cap, the financials are showing signs of growth. You see the revenue holding around $10 million per quarter. Why is that important? Well, if they're making, let's say, $40 or $50 million a year in revenue, but their market cap's only 80 million, I mean, those financials are actually quite good. And the types of contracts that they're getting or hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts if you take a look at their company. So those are the types of contracts that can move these smaller stocks. They got this Oasis Plus contract here. It basically means they're on demand. They service the government, and they got a lot of contracts related to processing large amounts of data and being able to help whether it's the government or whichever companies they're working with, make decisions on that data. And I found that their contracts to be very solid and their trends to be very consistent. So we're looking for a swing right here with Castellum potentially. Maybe this $94, we're already starting to see it maybe validate the support and swing up here. That would be an 80% swing. And it is a swing trade. Maybe it's a smaller in the day type of trade, but I can tell you we've been consistently looking at this one, holding it, and I like to see where it's going, and I look forward to seeing if any opportunities present themselves at market open. So guys, if you want to join us in our market open live session, it's the second link in the description. We reopened our sale for lifetime access. So again, if you want to join us, you want to be there at market open, see my entries and my exits. Again, it's that second link in the description. I would encourage you guys to simply take a look. We got a huge sale there. It's not getting any better than this. And just by taking a look, you could join us there, market open, 6:30 a.m. tomorrow. Would love to have you there. Thank you guys again for watching. If I earned your thumbs up, hit the like button. Let me know which ones did we miss. Comment one of your top 5 down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Do consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.